Given the current situation, what is your opinion? As we stood shoulder to shoulder discussing strategy, a mounted aide galloped over at full speed and reported an urgent matter. The fourth daughter of the Liang family has removed her official robes and is preparing to enter the monastery. Marcus Meng paused for a brief moment, then continued contemplating troop formations. That fourth daughter was precisely the young woman whom the Liang patriarch had intended to marry to Marcus Meng. Less than 2 months had passed, and now she was becoming a nun. If one said this had nothing to do with Iris, I would not believe it. I inquired carefully. The messenger had already learned the full story. After the marriage proposal was rejected, the Liang patriarch felt humiliated, and hurriedly sought another match for his daughter. Unexpectedly, the young woman was fiercely resolute. She swore that, if she could not marry Marcus Meng, she would rather suffer for the rest of her life. The household descended into chaos. In the end, the Liang patriarch ordered her to enter religious life, granting her wish in the cruelest way. I asked Marcus Meng, a woman gave up the secular world. Because of you, what do you think? Marcus Meng smiled faintly. What does that have to do with me? In this world, those within the matter gamble everything with courage, while outsiders watch coldly, unwilling to offer even a single gentle word. She looked beyond the command tent and said to me, "Our soldiers are strong, morale is high. Why haven't we taken the city yet?" I laughed and pointed at the map. City walls are easy to defend, hard to attack. A reckless assault would cost too much. Better to wait at ease while the enemy tires. Perhaps they will surrender without a fight. Marcus Meng replied, "The walls may be solid, but the city within is already in ruin. The soldiers lack armor and new weapons. And days ago, you cut off their supply routes. They are no more than spent crossbows." I also had rumors spread inside the city. Civil and military morale is low. Battles are won by momentum. If we give them time to prepare countermeasures, our losses will only increase. I was stunned. When had she begun doing all this? The inner defenses, the armories, the city walls. How did she know? And when had she spread those rumors? Marcus Meng led the troops into battle. Within mere hours, the enemy soldiers cast off their armor and fled in disarray, exactly as she had predicted. After capturing Danha's city, I ordered all government offices sealed, and official documents secured. Once affairs were settled, I hosted a grand banquet to reward the officers and men. Amid music and dance, I suddenly realized Marcus Meng was absent. I rose to search for her. After questioning several servants, I found her standing atop the city wall, gazing at the moon. When she saw me, she spoke at once. "Brother, unlike the greater campaign, grant this city to me." I studied her for a long moment, then said, "Very well." Marcus Meng continued, "I have already asked Father to relieve me of my post. Tomorrow, I will lead the troops north. From now on, elder brother need not concern himself with me anymore." I fell silent and looked at her, but she did not look back at me. There was upon Marcus Meng an air of worldliness and maturity that made one marvel. Yet also a trace of childish foolishness, so naive it was almost laughable. As a woman, moving freely within the military camps was already no easy matter, let alone making soldiers willingly submit to her command. That she had grown to this point, relied on the commander-in-chief, on the Meng family, and on money. She spent silver, and people were willing to sell their lives. With lives sold, she gained military merit, just as she had today. Wherever an army marches, how could silver not be needed? Grain supplies, military provisions, winter cotton garments, fine horses. Without money, where would the strength to field an army come from? If it were only this, it would not have mattered. I could still restrain her. But Iris, again and again, chose to oppose me. I wanted to arrange everything carefully, build high walls, store vast reserves of grain, then advance step by step. Marcus Meng, however, wanted to seize opportunity the moment she saw it, launching rash attacks, a few lucky victories, and she grew arrogant, fearing neither heaven nor earth, clamoring all day to march and conquer. I let out a long sigh and said to her, "If you've truly thought it through, then go. The young must endure hardship, only then will they learn." I said, "Iris, you must protect your own life." Marcus Meng's lips twitched slightly. She turned and walked away. During the days she was away from me, she lived freely and unrestrained. I do not know where she found her grain and silver, but she truly distributed military pay, just as she had always wanted. Supplies were no longer a concern. Morale surged in an instant. In a short span of time, she captured city after city. Her army expanded rapidly. Victories arrived one after another. Father, who had always been so calm, that even Mount Tai collapsing before him would not change his expression, now openly showed joy upon his face. Because of these reports, all day long he sighed in admiration. Iris is a rare genius. She is a born general. Raw jade still hidden in stone. General Marcus Meng truly has ability. Following General Marcus Meng, that is what exhilaration feels like. She is indeed a good person. Is she truly a woman? Father valued her, soldiers submitted to her, the common people loved her, and I, after parting from her, lost, one after another, all chances to distinguish myself. I merely remained in the rear, managing documents, quietly serving as a strategist, under Father's command, an ordinary general, unable to accomplish anything for the grand cause, yet a single capable advisor could turn the tide of heaven and earth. Perhaps I should admit it, Marcus Meng was a fallen general star, born by heaven to be a famed commander. Though I am her elder brother, older by several years, I could not do better than she. I should content myself with being a civil official, and for Father's great cause, brother and sister united in heart, reclaim our fortunes, and restore the glory of the Meng family. The day Marcus Meng captured Ungling Commandery, Father arranged a marriage for me to the legitimate eldest daughter of the Shen family, Serena Shen. She was a noble lady, beautiful, intelligent. I saw her once from afar, a young woman in a red dress. Her face indistinct, yet her bearing proud and exalted, like a phoenix. A faint joy stirred in my heart. Father's inner household had long been in chaos. Those women, fighting over scraps of favor, clawed and bled for attention, causing Mother to spend her days in tears, causing Iris to be repeatedly neglected, causing Grandmother to die holding regret in her heart. I would not take concubines. I was willing to marry only one wife, for life. The future matriarch of the Meng family would never suffer as Mother had. I carefully stored the marriage contract away in a box. Long ago, I had already saved up the bride price, and not only mine, but also the betrothal gifts for Afan and the dowry for Iris. Even in the hardest times, I had never touched these things. I only wished that when they grew up and married, they would not have to worry about the future. Then came news from the front lines. Marcus Meng had breached Ungling Commandery, and knocked upon the gates of Yong'an City, where the last emperor of the fallen state was openly slaughtering his own descendants and consorts. Sword at his waist, wearing imperial robes, he laughed wildly, mad as a demon, striding toward Phoenix Terrace. Marcus Meng sat astride her horse, a smile upon her lips, sharp, triumphant, like a drawn blade. From afar, she pointed toward Phoenix Terrace. The fallen emperor, after years of suppression, had reclaimed 200,000 households, and spent 13 years building a paradise on earth. I had once been fortunate enough to enter the capital with father and see that paradise. Back then, I felt like a mortal entering the heavens, too afraid even to raise my head. Such a scene, now destroyed. Truly a pity. After Marcus Meng seized the capital, I immediately began handling the aftermath, waiting to be dispatched to the capital, to assist in stabilizing and guarding the city. But father ordered us to hold. His gaze remained sharp as ever, fixed toward the north. Calm, cold, it is not yet time. Inside the city, Marcus Meng took control of government offices and subdued the officials. With elite troops and capable generals under her command, she secured every strategic checkpoint. Then followed 10 consecutive days of purging the court. Marcus Meng reopened the Court of Judicial Review and appointed the upright official Feng Qing to investigate accumulated cases. On those days, heads piled into mountains. Blood flowed like rivers, aristocratic households sealed there. Gates tight, yet could not stop the Meng army's hooves from trampling them open. Every day, people were arrested, dragged into government offices, or pushed onto execution platforms. The common people gnashed their teeth in hatred. Complaint stalls outside the magistrate offices stretched all the way to the city gates. Families wished to reclaim the bodies of their kin, yet lacked the power to do so. Some, driven by vendetta, tore enemies apart piece by piece, ground them into pulp, burned them with fire, and finally fed the remains to wild dogs. Days of chaos, fattened a pack of dogs, prowling beyond the city walls. Cries of grief filled the grand mansions. Within the city, father gazed toward the capital. I could not understand the expression on his face. Just like me, I had never truly understood him. Father had always been different from others. He loathed the former court, yet risked death time and again, for its sake. He loved the common people, yet indulged endlessly in desire, never moved by the bleached bones along the roadside. He loved my mother, yet took concubine after concubine, one after another. Let the women in the inner court fight each other to death if they wish. The man I loved allowed Iris Meng to practice martial arts freely, to read military texts, to lead troops into battle, to conquer and to punish across the land, actions that ruined her reputation beyond repair. Yet he never once calculated the cost for her. As for me, he delayed my betrothal long after my coming of age. He loved his children, yet he turned a blind eye while the Bai clan caused chaos, allowing those children to struggle between life and death in the inner quarters without inquiry or care. He harbored ambitions to seize the realm, yet entrusted power to a woman, sending her to gamble her life for his grand cause. Marquis Meng Yinqing of the Northern Expedition, my father, the future emperor, what exactly were you thinking? On the day we entered the capital, clean water was splashed across the streets, golden soil spread to pave the roads. The common people fasted, refusing food and drink, just to welcome the new emperor. Marcus Meng, not yet 20, had already established merit that towered to the heavens. His armor was immaculate, yet his eyes shone with the brightness of a child, as though he were waiting for a word of praise. My father laughed heartily and allowed him to personally lead the reins of the imperial horse. He was not a commandery princess. He was not a daughter of the Northern Expedition Marquis' household. He was not father's Ayu. He was Marcus Meng, General Meng, walking through the streets. All I heard were praises from Marcus Meng. He loves the people as his own children. Wherever he strikes, nothing can withstand him. Everything he does succeeds. A hero, a great talent, a divine maiden reborn, a fallen star from the heavens. Marcus Meng pacified 3 provinces and 50 cities, personally leading the slaughter of enemy generals. Yet he never harmed the common people, and even released countless talented young men. The great families feared Marcus Meng. The common people adored Marcus Meng. Scholars revered Marcus Meng. Soldiers worshipped Marcus Meng. I should have been proud. I truly should have been proud. I should have told everyone. That is my younger sibling, so capable. And I am his elder brother, but my throat tightened, and no words came. In my days, I saw a deputy general, whose proposal for punitive campaigns I had once rejected, now smiling in mockery. Friends I had once considered confidants looked upon me with disdain and cold indifference. Advisors urged me to maneuver and issue military provisions. When I refused, they snorted in contempt, showing no respect at all. Bit by bit, I realized that within the people's praise of Marcus Meng, words had begun to appear, sharp as blades, aimed directly at me. General Meng is truly formidable. At 14, she already overthrew her own elder brother. She once entered a bandit camp alone and persuaded Deng Sui to surrender. 2. Had poured my heart and soul into my efforts, busy day and night in Yu province, carving out a sliver of peace within the chaos. The Meng family fought for the realm. Though my military merits could not compare to Marcus Meng's, I lived in constant vigilance, stabilizing the rear, giving him a secure foundation and a peaceful base. The world knew that Marcus Meng of the Meng family was an unparalleled woman, her military achievements outstanding, a fierce and valiant female general. Yet no one knew that the eldest son of the Meng family, Meng Ju, had also rendered merit, stabilizing the rear, recruiting the worthy, quelling internal strife, protecting the people's livelihood, and safeguarding the common people's hard-won peace. Father cast me a glance and said calmly, "Jur, you have lost your composure." I lowered my head and accepted his reprimand. He said, "Au is my daughter." I looked toward him. He was smiling at his daughter. Her youth as a young woman had long since passed, yet as a general, she was still so young. That face bore a radiant smile, between her brows shone an arrogant brilliance. Marcus Meng was far too young. Her ambition burned openly upon her face. Perhaps even she herself did not know how many desires she carried within her. Her abilities, and father's indulgence, gave her reason to do whatever she wished. A young woman, so naturally adept, knowing instinctively how to win the hearts of the people, I suddenly realized, in shock, that Marcus Meng wanted far too much: power, status, fame, perhaps even the position of crown prince. Perhaps father himself did not realize just how deeply he favored Marcus Meng. Marcus Meng feared neither heaven nor earth. Born a general, brilliant beyond measure, even rebellion would not have seemed out of place for him. Father truly loved him, his eldest son, loyal to the state, devoted to the army. His second son, mediocre, cowardly, timid, yet his legitimate daughter dared to speak freely. If rebellion is the best strategy, then I ask my lord to rebel. Such a child perfectly suited his heart. Father was preparing to ascend the throne. 1 month later, during a night banquet at Jianzhong Palace, after drinking to excess, he pointed at Marcus Meng and said, "Marcus Meng, my beloved daughter. Heaven has bestowed her upon me. She is my Qilin child." His voice was lonely, truly lonely. "I hate that you are not a man," he seemed to say. "I cannot make you crown prince." No one dared to answer, but gazes from all directions converged upon me. "Marcus Meng is your sibling," they said with their eyes, "and yet she cannot be named heir." I looked toward father and scarcely recognized his face beneath the blazing lanterns. He saw only his Qilin child. He wanted Marcus Meng seated beside him, and thus, his eldest son had to give way. His lifelong ambition had finally been fulfilled. Yet at this very moment, his greatest regret was that his Qilin child was a woman. I lowered my hand into the lake. My wide sleeve concealed the hand clenched so tightly that bruises bloomed beneath the skin. I smiled at them. I still loved them. A messenger burst in to report, "The rebel army has breached Yanshan Pass." The hall fell silent. "Your Majesty, this minister requests to lead the campaign." Before I could open my mouth, I realized. The voice came from beside me, Marcus Meng. Marcus Meng had been gone for 6 months. Serena Shen hurried through the gates to formally assume her position as Crown Princess Consort. It should not have been so rushed, but I was already of age. I needed to marry, to produce heirs. Only by establishing a household could I continue pursuing my ambitions. In the second year of Marcus Meng's absence, my younger sister Meng Ling was married off. The reputation of the Meng family's daughters had long been ruined by Marcus Meng. There was almost nothing left. The eldest sister entered and exited military camps, ignored feminine virtues, lacked decorum, knew nothing of managing an inner household, and was publicly rejected from marriage. Then what respectable family would dare to propose to her younger sisters? Those who came were all from minor households, seeking only advancement and glory through marriage into the marquisate. Father's standards, however, were high. He refused to let my sisters bow their heads before families of questionable standing. And so matters were delayed. Now, the female cousins had become princesses. Countless men waited to be chosen. Though the eldest sister remained unmarried, none dared criticize her. I personally selected Meng Ling's groom. The man was of similar age, handsome, talented, with a simple household, upright family values, and clean background. Though his resources were modest, for a princess, this could hardly be called a flaw. For both sides, it was a fitting conclusion. I watched the matchmaker dress my cousin and send her off to marriage. The young woman reflected in the bronze mirror had brows and eyes like a painting, her complexion fresh as spring peach blossoms. If Xiang Sanlang had not so publicly broken off the engagement back then, the one marrying in her place would have been her. Such a good daughter, if she had been married into the Xiang household, how could she have survived? Her mother, Madame Song, lifted her brows in joy. Today was her daughter's wedding day. She had wanted to shed a few tears, yet feared it would dampen the celebratory mood. In the end, she merely reddened her eyes and expressed thanks to His Majesty, and to the heavens alike. That day, as father watched Meng Ling leave in her bridal procession, he asked me, "Have you given Linger the dowry you had set aside for Au?" I replied, "Au does not wish to marry. Since that is the case, we might as well prepare it for Linger first. When Au returns, we can prepare another set for her." Father asked again, "I heard recently that Au once wished to make Danha her fief." "A few days ago, I already granted Danha to Linger. Why did you not mention this to me?" I answered, "Au does not care about a single piece of land. When she returns, you can grant her an even better fief." His Majesty gave a faint, cold smile and said nothing more. When I returned to the Eastern Palace, I noticed that the palace maids were unusually cheerful, which struck me as strange. It was only after entering the hall that I saw Serena Shen, properly dressed, personally serving me tea. I was genuinely surprised. My crown princess consort, Serena Shen, was a very good woman. She was born beautiful, with a trace of the pride typical of a noble lady from a great family, but she was not malicious. She could ride horses, compose poetry, and was highly skilled at lyrical verse, though she was always somewhat distant with me. When she played pitch-pot with the palace maids of the Eastern Palace, she became lively, bright, and adorable. At first, when facing me, she was rather reserved. Later, seeing how much I favored her, she became like a little cat, revealing sharp claws, a bit spoiled and proud from indulgence, but she was born lovable. I was willing to indulge her, it was not a bad thing, yet today, why was she being so gentle, so attentive in serving me, seeing that I remained unmoved? My wife did not act coquettish as usual. Instead, she shut the doors, blocked the servants outside, then suddenly knelt before me and burst into tears like pear blossoms in the rain. It was because of the suppression campaign. In earlier dynasties, when imperial authority was at its peak, even the great clans had to show some restraint. But this was no decaying court, and my father was no weak and incompetent last emperor. During the 10 days of turmoil in Yong'an City, sons and grandsons of those great families were harmed, some more, some less, by Marcus Meng. Naturally, they hated him. After years of warfare, the great clans had suffered heavy losses. Yet their 100-year foundations could not be underestimated. Once they twisted together like a rope and resolved to take revenge, what would they not dare to do? Yanshan Pass was an excellent place, a perfect place to die. That rolling expanse of yellow sand, that was the burial ground they had chosen for Marcus Meng. The Great Liang had only just been founded. The court was busy transporting provisions, yet the supplies meant for the frontier went missing. The army's advance slowed, becoming ever more difficult, even when messengers personally sent by Marcus Meng attempted to deliver reports, twice. They were intercepted 50 li outside the city and vanished, beneath the feet of the Son of Heaven. How could such matters be concealed for long? His Majesty possessed both great talent and great power. How could they hide it forever? And so Serena Shen acted recklessly, kneeling before me, begging me. She wanted me to go protect the very people who had harmed my sibling. I looked at my wife and said calmly, "That is my sibling." Serena Shen wept in despair, "But my younger brother, my good younger brother, was killed by your good sibling." She cried and said her brother was exceptionally intelligent, able to recite many poems by the age of 3. When the tutor lectured, he remembered everything after hearing it once, so young, and every time he went out, he remembered to bring back small gifts for her and for their mother. He died so unjustly, she sobbed. "Your Highness, if it were you, could you swallow such hatred? Please, save them." I said coldly, "Anyone taken away that day had blood on their hands." Serena Shen clutched my sleeve. I slowly pulled my hand free. After a long while, she choked out, "My brother was so well behaved. How could he have committed such evil acts?" "Your Highness always favors your sibling," she continued, but the lives in her hands were also someone else's sons, someone else's brothers, someone else's betrothed. She lifted her head. Tears streamed down her face, yet a sharp light flashed in her eyes. "Your Highness treats her so well that you would give her your very heart and soul. But will the princess truly be grateful? She is already a female general, the one His Majesty favors most. Among her siblings, who could compare to her? If the princess truly thought for your sake," she said softly, "she would not act so brutally and recklessly. How much trouble has she brought upon you, and upon His Majesty?" I looked at my wife. Behind her stood the Shen family, her elder brother now serving in the Ministry of War. Her brother-in-law from the Deng family, her sister-in-law from a princely house. She was clearly sowing discord between Marcus Meng and me, simple, insidious, foolish, and yet, laughably effective. I personally helped her to her feet and said, "This will not happen a second time." That night, I summoned my scholars in the Eastern Palace and had them review every document, scrutinizing every omission in detail. One scholar endured in silence before finally saying, "A princess is still only a princess. Granting military authority to the Qin state princess is still better than giving it to Prince Yanghua, Your Highness. Why must you do this? The princess of Qin was the fief of my sibling, Marcus Meng. Prince Yanghua was the fief of my younger brother, Meng Fan. He often thought I had gone mad. Yes, I truly had gone mad. Marcus Meng was a woman. She could never inherit the throne, and I was the rightful line of the Eastern Palace, the eldest son, occupying every advantage of ritual and law. The dynasty had just been founded. Even if I lacked Marcus Meng's military achievements, I had still rendered merit. With such a favorable situation, why would I destroy my own Great Wall? I said. You do not understand. He truly did not. That was my sibling. In this world, no one loved her more than I did, and no one understood her better than I did. She was born rebellious, obsessed with power, status, and fame, selfish and arrogant. Whatever she wanted, she had to obtain. Whoever she loved had to love her in return. She could not tolerate the slightest deviation, yet she was also a peerless talent. If not given, she would take. If not loved, she would retaliate. She wanted power. She wanted wealth. She wanted 10,000 people to bow before her. She wanted dominion over mountains and rivers. Because of her, the position of crown prince beneath my feet could never be truly secure. Serena Shen's provocation was shallow and foolish, but undeniably effective. At the very least, she was right about one thing. What Marcus Meng wanted would only grow more and more. I am her elder brother by blood. Meng Fan is also her blood brother. To her, whether I inherit the throne or Fanner inherits it makes no difference. Then why would she choose to support a younger brother who is ordinarily weak and timid to become crown prince, rather than an elder brother who is decisive, ambitious, and rich in strategy? If I were to inherit the throne, she could only remain a subject, but if Fanner were to inherit it, she could issue commands in the Son of Heaven's name, a grand princess whose power would overshadow the entire court, and a female general with title but without true authority. Anyone could tell which choice she would make. I would rather strangle her at the border than allow her to help me ascend to the position of crown prince, only to later drag me down with her own hands. I am the eldest son, and what is she, really? I will not relinquish the position of crown prince. Marcus Meng's luck was not bad. Mei Zhifeng had fled for many years, selling off his family's wealth, only to save him from a sea of fire. Who could have imagined that the Mei family's only son, once deemed a degenerate disgrace, would become a merchant whose wealth rivaled an entire state? Traveling west and north on business, he encountered an army escorting wagons of military provisions. Dark clouds gathered, rain was imminent, yet the grain carts were left completely uncovered, and the army's pace was sluggish. He immediately sensed something was amiss. Though he held no post at court, he had a father whose name resounded throughout the realm. He sent people to the capital to inquire and learned that all the messengers Marcus Meng had dispatched to urge the delivery of provisions had been detained. Their memorials were withheld and never submitted. Lord Mei submitted a memorial questioning the matter, then, selling off the last of his family fortune. Mei Zhifeng personally purchased provisions, dragging Marcus Meng back from the brink of disaster. Who could have thought that Marcus Meng, having been so carefully schemed against, would still be able to reverse the tide, through someone with whom he had shared only a brief acquaintance? When news of Marcus Meng's victory reached me, I was in my chamber copying Buddhist scriptures. I paused my brush and carefully reread the prayer passages. To become a disciple of Lord Mei, the first lesson was calligraphy. Characters reflect the person, upright strokes mirror an upright heart. I had copied dozens upon dozens of characters, writing each stroke with care. What a pity! I thought, you are always so lucky. These scriptures had been copied for her. Marcus Meng should have returned to the capital in a coffin. I would have refused all ritual formalities, personally borne her coffin myself. I would have copied scriptures and prayed for her, defying all opposition, and buried her in the imperial mausoleum. I would have given my most beloved child to her as an adopted heir, invited her spirit tablet into the ancestral temple, and ensured that even 100 years later, she would still have descendants to offer sacrifices. I would have exterminated the great clans that harmed her, sending them underground to beg her forgiveness. I would have accumulated wealth in her stead, done good deeds in her name, trained troops, and within 10 years, would have bathed the ruin in blood to avenge her. I burned the scriptures in my hands, the paper curled in the charcoal brazier, flames glowing a gentle crimson, then in an instant turning to pale ash. I gazed toward Yanshan Pass and could not help but sigh. Au. I have loved you for so long. Forgive your brother this once, she returned, with confident smiles and resplendent military achievements. She did not know who had harmed her. Still naive, still foolish, she wanted father to preside over justice for her. His Majesty summoned her to Jianzhong Palace. She was thrilled and obeyed at once. She had been granted such a luxurious residence, yet showed not the slightest caution in staying within the Son of Heaven's quarters. Feng Qing was a sharp blade in His Majesty's hand. He had once been the Minister of Justice of the former dynasty, a lone current of integrity amid the filth of fame and profit. He had arrested corrupt officials for the sake of the people. He had donated his wealth to raise orphans. He had severed all ties with his clan because they tried to bribe him with gold. When imprisoned, he cursed the traitorous ministers with fury, vowing loyalty unto death and revenge for the former dynasty. Thrown into prison, he never bent his will. Feng Qing possessed immense prestige among the common people. He had originally intended to die for his country, yet for reasons unknown, after Marcus Meng personally visited him, he changed his mind. He wagered a lifetime of spotless reputation, and willingly became an official of the Great Liang. Former dynasty officials cursed him. The common people praised him. That he had survived the corrupt court of the previous dynasty, already proved the depth of his mind. That he could relinquish his proud integrity to serve the new dynasty, showed the respect he held for Marcus Meng, a man who retained public trust even through a change of dynasties. Once tasked with investigating the missing provisions, would certainly uncover the truth. That period was oppressively dark. Officials throughout the court lived in fear, afraid that at any moment the disaster would spread to them. Marcus Meng was most skilled at winning the hearts of the people. Along the road back to the capital, he deliberately spread word of the grain provision affair, catching the great clans completely off guard. How dare they interfere with the provisions of frontier soldiers? Once Yanshan Pass fell, the ruin would pour south into the central plains, plundering and slaughtering at will. That would be collusion with the enemy, treason against the state. The matter of the missing provisions spread like wildfire. Merchants and commoners discussed it endlessly in the streets. Storytellers repeated it again and again in taverns and tea houses. Crowds filled the avenues, buzzing with agitation. Everyone was saying, the frontier army's provisions were intercepted. Without grain, what are they supposed to fight with? General Marcus Meng is risking his life holding the city. How can this battle be won? A young master of the Mei family sold off his entire fortune to purchase grain and hold the line. Why didn't the court provide supplies? The court had its news blocked and never received the reports. General Marcus Meng is the emperor's own child. Who would dare cut off her provisions? Who else could it be? Those great clans. General Marcus Meng killed their sons who committed atrocities. Of course they would seek revenge. The common people may be uneducated, but more often than not, they are the ones who see the truth most clearly. Once the machinery of power began to move, those involved found themselves shackled, unable to act freely. with Feng Qing watching every step they took. Some submitted memorials asking to resign. Some sat as if on burning coals, trembling day and night, afraid that the executioner's blade would fall on them at any moment. I do not know whether they ever felt regret, but I know this much: the taste of it was unbearable. The Great Purge lasted for half a year. No one knows how many people tried to gamble against it. No one knows how many chose to compromise. No one knows what kinds of exchanges were struck behind closed doors. And no one knows how many, in complete ignorance, became expendable sacrifices. No one truly cared. This case implicated more than 1,000 people, the Wang and Deng families were pushed to the very crest of the storm. These two families had once stood at the pinnacle of power during the former dynasty, first-rank noble houses at the height of their glory. Even the imperial clan had once yielded to them by 3 parts. A direct confrontation would have achieved nothing, and yet, over these past 6 months, His Majesty had used a dull knife to cut away their flesh, slice by slice, slow enough to instill terror, slow enough to drive them into despair. Even Feng Qin could not immediately summon them for interrogation. From this, one could see clearly, even His Majesty did not dare annihilate them outright. As long as they lived, there would always be room to maneuver, so some were promoted. Some were demoted, some were executed, some resigned quietly. The changes within the court occurred without sound or warning, dragging the great aristocratic families down into a mire. They watched helplessly, as they walked toward a dead end, and yet could not escape it. On the day the Wang and Deng families finally paid for their crimes, I lost my firstborn child, the crown princess consort, upon hearing the news, suffered violent emotional shock and went into premature labor. The child was not yet fully formed, before it was born lifeless, separated by only one door. Inside lay the crown princess consort who had just lost her child, yet to me, she felt like a stranger. Ignoring the wet nurse's gentle persuasion, I walked into the room. Her face was deathly pale as she lay on the bed. My heart softened despite myself. I took a cloth, soaked it in warm water, and gently wiped the sweat from her brow. She struggled backward in fear, but I pressed her down. Basin after basin of blood was carried out. Serena Shun laughed, a laugh filled with utter despair. Why? Didn't your Highness keep your promise? I replied calmly, the one who can protect your maternal family is His Majesty. He has already shown great mercy. Her laughter trembled. This is the Eastern Palace, she said. Not the Zhang audience hall. Then she asked, voice breaking, is only the life of the Qin princess a life? Are all other lives nothing but grass and dirt? The imperial decree cannot be defied, I said. Suddenly, Serena Shun grabbed my hand with immense strength. She had just suffered a miscarriage. This should have been her weakest moment. I never expected her to still possess such force. She begged me. My elder sister has just married into the Deng family. She knows nothing. She is pregnant. Please. Save her, I beg you. I fell silent. The hope in her eyes collapsed into despair. She went limp against the bed, as if her grief had reached its absolute limit. And she did not speak another word. After a long while, I finally said, very well. I exhausted every means at my disposal to arrange for that Shun mother and child to be secretly transferred to a secluded estate. Soon after, the autumn hunt arrived. Marcus Meng had never liked the amusements of ordinary girls. From childhood, she had instead devoted herself to archery and horsemanship, often hunting alongside me. Each time, her results were impressive. After the grain supply case concluded, she fell gravely ill for a time. When she finally recovered, the hunt had arrived, and of course, she insisted on attending. On the field, I saw many young ladies, unaware of when it had begun. imitating Marcus Meng, riding horses, drawing bows, their heroic postures bold and unrestrained. Their laughter rang like bells, capturing the attention of countless young men, who blushed, looked away, then could not help looking again. The stubborn old ministers cursed twice under their breath, muttering about the decline of public morals, yet even they dared say no more. Decline of public morals, meaning that customs and ethics were growing ever more corrupt. Marcus Meng, a bow slung across her back, stood in the distance, smiling. That night at the banquet, she drank heavily. She even carried a wine flask over to me and placed a stack of hawthorn cakes on the table. Her face was flushed, her eyes red, yet strangely clear. I suspected she knew something, but she said nothing. After finishing the pastries, she left. The next day, while chasing a fox into the forest, I saw Marcus Meng ahead of me. Almost instinctively, I raised my bow and loosed an arrow. It struck the ground at her feet. I could never have truly harmed her. She lifted her head, said nothing, only drank some water. Then she removed her bow and fired 3 arrows in rapid succession. I felt a fierce wind slash past my cheeks, a stinging pain following it. When I regained my senses, I saw one arrow graze past my body. Its shaft embedded in the tree beside me, the fletching still trembling. I was furious and snapped back. "Is this your way of trying to kill your brother?" Marcus Meng let out a cold laugh. "You're no better than the crown prince, a beast with a human face, killing your own sister." At that moment, I knew. She had known everything all along. "Who told you?" I demanded. Fear surged in my heart, confusion, and beneath it, a strange, resolute certainty taking shape. So that was it. Her vigilance back then had not been without reason. In truth, even I, though far from a good person, still retained a shred of conscience. On sleepless nights, I had felt pain for her. She asked me, "If I die and Yanshan Pass falls, who will you find to replace me?" "In the army, there are always elite troops and capable generals," I said. "Su Xingji can hold the line. Ma Xing and Huang Changping are skilled as well. They may not equal you, but they can be used." "Marcus Meng is a star general," I continued, "but Great Liang does not rely on her alone." She exploded in rage and punched me. I was no match for her in combat, and took the blow head on. As I was about to strike back, I heard her voice, hoarse, shattered, each word soaked in blood. "Ma Xing is in Lang Prefecture. Huang Changping is in the capital. Their command ability does not compare to mine. The soldiers under them are inferior to my black armored army, an army I trained with my own hands. To reach Yanshan Pass would take another month. On the battlefield, a single instant can change everything. The Great Liang has only just been founded, and yet you, as Crown Prince, are already willing to bury tens of thousands of lives and drag Great Liang into a quagmire?" I froze. Then I pushed her away, straightened my clothes, and spoke calmly. "Those two may not compare to you, but they can still hold the ruin beyond the Yellow River. Father and I are of one mind. At most, in a few years, we will reorganize the troops and crush the ruin completely." She asked, "And north of the Yellow River?" I did not know how to answer. What should I say? Should I say that as Crown Prince, I was cruel and inhumane, deliberately sacrificing frontier soldiers so that the barbarians could more easily pour into the Central Plains and plunder at will? Or should I say that as an elder brother, I was blinded by love and indulgence, allowing my wife's family to act recklessly and ultimately harm my own biological sister? That I was incompetent, shameless, heartless, and devoid of virtue? Yet I still knew shame. Iris Meng was so furious that she vomited blood. She drew her Duandao saber and swung it at me. Only then did I realize, she truly wanted to kill me. I panicked and dodged, but that saber was a divine weapon, incomparably sharp. I saw that escape was impossible, so I closed my eyes. Instead of pain, I heard the sound of metal and jade shattering above my head. My hair was cut loose, falling wildly around me. I looked utterly disheveled. Iris Meng cut her sleeve, severing our bond, and swore to the heavens, from today onward, the bond between Iris Meng and her elder brother is completely ended. I do not wish to bear an evil reputation, so just as you said, from now on we are like water and fire, siblings no more. I ask your highness to conduct yourself with restraint. My heart ached, so we had truly reached this point, yet seeing that her fury had not subsided, I felt an even darker urge rise within me. I did not want her to live well. Forcing a smile, I said, Enoch, come here. I'll tell you a secret. Before grandmother passed away, she left me a saber. It was an excellent blade, sharp enough to cleave iron like mud. It was wrapped in silk, upon which were written blood-red words, if Iris Meng rebels, kill her without mercy. Grandmother had long foreseen Iris Meng's future. A girl like her could bring catastrophic ruin upon the family. She did not speak these words aloud before her death, but instead wrote them on silk and wrapped them around the blade, proof that she still retained a trace of compassion and kinship toward Iris Meng. But at that time, my heart was filled with towering ambition. I believed myself the most unparalleled talent under heaven. I never once took this rebellious sister seriously. She was my biological sister. How could she ever surpass me? If she truly endangered the family, I would simply lock her away at home and keep her for life. Back then, I truly loved her. So how had we come to this? Iris Meng's face turned deathly pale. She even stepped back. The Qin state princess who destroyed the Ruren and washed away national humiliation. The Qilin child spoken of by His Majesty. The female general whose name alone shocked the world. How could she now be afraid? She believed me instantly. I stepped forward, she retreated. One step landed on empty air, and she fell into the spring. When she finally struggled back up, her entire body was soaked, pale as a water demon. I had never seen her so wretched. I approached slowly, brushed the wet hair from her cheek, and asked in a voice so gentle it was almost cruel, Enoch, why don't you doubt what I just told you? Then I answered for her, because you know it's true. Grandmother cleared your injustice. But she never loved you. She believed you would bring disaster upon the family. Mother sewed clothes and shoes for you, but she never loved you. Her heart belonged only to the child of the concubine, Fan, whom you protected across thousands of miles. Your younger siblings respect you, but they do not love you. They call you a demon and fear that you will take their lives. Even father, who indulged and cherished you, chose to abandon you when faced with the great noble clans. You are an unwanted child, Enoch. In this world, no one loves you. They fear you, use you, squeeze every last bit of your value dry, and then discard you like a roadside stone, still complaining that you hurt their feet. Iris Meng's face turned paper white, caught between laughter and tears. No one loved her. She knew this better than anyone. She had simply played deaf and blind, deceiving herself. She seized everything with ruthless force, carried father's treasured blade with her at all times, flaunted the wealth and splendor of the princess's estate, desperate to tell the world, look how favored I am. But mirrors and water, flowers and moonlight, beautiful dreams shattered into cruel reality, soaked. Disheveled, utterly desperate, she stood surrounded by mocking gazes, used, then discarded like a toy, yet she still dared to dream of climbing above me. I closed my eyes, led my horse away calmly, and returned to the imperial residence. Only then did the attendants discover my disordered state. Word spread rapidly. His Majesty soon learned of it. Several noble houses learned as well, including my wife's family. That night, Iris Meng returned. Before her stood a group of debauched nobles from the former dynasty, men who strutted arrogantly all day long. Behind her, she stood straight-backed and silent. I did not know what conflict had occurred, but they had clearly offended Iris Meng. One of them had a short blade embedded in his calf, blood streaming down his leg, yet none dared cry out. The injured man was a scion of a great house, also present at the hunting event. They clamored for His Majesty to give an explanation. In the end, I could not bear it and still defended Iris Meng. His Majesty looked at me coldly, then ordered her flogged. That night, the autumn rain was bone-chilling. Consort Xiao pleaded tearfully. Such heavy rain. Iris Meng had only just recovered her health. She begged His Majesty to summon a physician first. His Majesty's face hardened. Through clenched teeth, he said, "Drag her out. Beat her." The rain grew heavier. Consort Xiao lost all her usual grace and composure. At last, she could not endure it and ran outside. The noble families, having received a satisfactory answer, all withdrew. I rose to leave as well, but His Majesty said, "The Crown Prince stays." I remained. He ignored me, flipping through memorials. After a long time, the guard Gao Yangxing entered and reported, "Your Majesty, the princess has fainted. The Empress begs that a physician be summoned. The princess appears to have caught a severe chill." Father was startled. "Send her back to the princess's estate. Dispatch an imperial physician at once." As Gao Yangxing prepared to withdraw, Father added, "Transmit the edict. The Qin state princess is arrogant and reckless. Her stipend is suspended for 1 year. From today onward, she is confined to her estate. Without my decree, she is not to step outside." I wondered, should I plead for her? Before I could speak, Father suddenly erupted in rage. He seized the inkstone from the desk and hurled it at me. I suppressed the instinct to dodge. The inkstone struck me, knocking me sideways. My forehead throbbed with pain. Something flowed down my cheek, ink, perhaps blood. The smell was thick and nauseating. From his lofty position, the Emperor asked coldly, "Colluding with outsiders to murder your own sister, truly a fine son of mine." I wiped my face with my sleeve, and for the first time, looked at him without restraint. "Your Majesty, why bother pretending? With noble clans this large, could they really fail to act flawlessly? And on what grounds do you believe I could conceal their crimes?" When the grain supply case occurred, I already knew. So did His Majesty, the loving father of Iris Meng. He tacitly allowed it to happen. This was his compensation to the noble clans. Iris Meng was born of a great family, yet her stance opposed them. I do not know when she developed such thoughts. Perhaps during those years she wandered outside, or perhaps even earlier. She enjoyed the luxury of a noble lady, yet showed kindness to the poor and lowly. This was truly laughable. In the past, when she led troops alone, she had already dared to draw her blade against local gentry and powerful clans. After entering the capital, she went even further, personally carrying out death sentences on the direct descendants of aristocratic families. Any scion of a great house could be searched, arrested, or executed by her. If she did not die, how could the fury of the high noble clans ever be appeased? Everything she did was too blatant. Whenever she intended to kill someone, she would first parade them through the streets, spreading the matter throughout the city, stirring waves of fear, grief, and outrage among the common people, forcing the aristocratic clans to restrain themselves. However unwillingly, they hated Marcus Meng to the bone. They wished nothing more than to flay her alive and strip her to the marrow. Yet because the common people were enraged on her behalf, the great clans could only retreat one step at a time. Emperor Alaric Meng saw all of this clearly. He knew that as long as Marcus Meng lived, the noble clans would remain an enormous threat to the imperial authority of Great Liang. Yes, the common people supported her, but after 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, could the people truly continue to defy the aristocratic clans for Marcus Meng alone? Therefore, when Marcus Meng was dispatched to the frontier, he issued orders to cut back her fief and weaken her border authority. Thus, he tacitly allowed the noble clans to tamper with military provisions in exchange for their temporary support. If Marcus Meng died in battle, the rage of the noble clans would be calmed, and in the future, when those clans eventually weakened, there would be justification to annihilate their 9 generations. That was why I was not afraid of His Majesty's anger. At present, he dared not kill me. I looked toward His Majesty and smiled, a smile that must have looked dreadful. His Majesty's expression stiffened instantly. I was the eldest son, cultivated by him for over 20 years. He could not bear to kill me. I held every advantage of ritual and law. I was a perfect chess piece to counter Marcus Meng. He would not kill me. As long as I lived, he could use me to restrain her, to suppress that brilliant yet disobedient, shameless, uncontrollable threat. If Marcus Meng rebelled, the consequences would be terrifying. I had been arrogant for over 20 years, but only at this moment did I finally realize how shallow and foolish I truly was. I had thought a father loved his children. It turned out that the only person Emperor Alaric Meng had ever truly loved was himself. He indulged Marcus Meng, spoiled her into a lawless demon who feared neither heaven nor earth. Yet when power was at stake, he discarded her without hesitation. He valued me so highly, invited famous scholars to teach me, protected and elevated me at every step, not out of love, but to balance Marcus Meng. The reason for my existence was nothing more than Marcus Meng. Marcus Meng and the Emperor played chess. I was merely a piece. How ridiculous. Crown Prince. How absurd a fate. How could I not believe in destiny? In the 18th summer, Marcus Meng was impeached. She was accused of building a residence that exceeded the regulations set for the imperial family. The elder brother of the crown princess, Serena Shen's brother, Shen Anha, stepped forward under my orchestration to accuse and confirm that Marcus Meng had secretly colluded with the Great Yuan state. He produced a ledger, meticulously organized, clearly listing her alleged crimes. In the past, when Marcus Meng had been framed by the noble clans, His Majesty not only granted her 1,500 households as fief but deliberately rewarded her with 8,000 elite troops, appointing her as ministerial commander of the Ministry of War. Marcus Meng received the edict and thanked him in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, then claimed ill health and declined to take office. His Majesty was deeply moved and ordered Vice Minister Shen Anha to assume the role temporarily. That was why Shen Anha could fabricate such airtight evidence. The reasons were absurd, utterly ridiculous. Who would dare believe that Marcus Meng had colluded with the Great Yuan state? It was a joke. Yet His Majesty believed it. He flung the evidence before her and demanded an explanation. From afar, I could not see clearly, but I could imagine her gaze, her expression, surely filled with scrutiny and guarded suspicion. A minister who had the people's support, outstanding talent, and military power was destined to die. Marcus Meng bowed. This subject has nothing to say. Why did she not defend herself? Why did she not point at me as the mastermind behind it all? She had once been falsely accused, pushed into a lake, nearly beaten to death, refusing to admit guilt even at the cost of starvation. So why did she accept it now? Why did she accept it so easily? Marcus Meng pleaded guilty. Her guards were immediately forbidden to accompany her. Perhaps His Majesty still remembered a trace of paternal affection. He did not kill her. Instead, he stripped her of rank and exiled her to Ling Prefecture. Before she left, I went to see her off. Gently, I said, "Enoch, if there is a future, I will surely protect you for a lifetime of wealth and honor." Marcus Meng laughed. "You are the real family. All of you bully me alone." I only replied, "Enoch, do not blame your elder brother. The imperial house is heartless. Take care of yourself." She turned, mounted her horse, no longer carrying the exhaustion of before. She said, "We will meet again." Meet again. I silently repeated those words, smiling faintly. "Enoch, I only hope we truly meet again. I hope you do not die in Ling Prefecture." Deng Sui, standing beside me, asked, "Young master, do your earlier words still count?" I sneered. Who wishes to be a subject when one can be a ruler? Deng Sui stared at Marcus Meng's departing figure and said, "Young master, you have already lost." He laughed. "As long as that woman survives, you will lose completely." I frowned at him. He clasped his hands, chanting a few lines of opera lyrics from somewhere unknown, swaying as he walked back into the city. The autumn wind was cold, but not as cold as the heart of a ruler. The very next day, Deng Sui submitted his resignation. His Majesty approved it. Life after Marcus Meng's departure was no easier. At the very least, my third brother, Meng Kuan, was not someone who inspired peace of mind. He was 2 years younger than Linger, the first son of a concubine to be enfeoffed as a prince and granted his own estate. His princess consort also came from a noble family. He was like a venomous snake, coiled in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Marcus Meng's departure was a once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity in his eyes. He began cautiously probing, testing boundaries, feeling out the emperor's bottom line. I felt a vague sense of confusion. Father had once loved us so dearly. Why did becoming emperor turn him so suspicious? He grasped power so tightly that it chilled the hearts of men. For power, he could coldly kill the daughter he had loved for 20 years. For power, he could elevate the son he once ignored and pit him against the eldest son he had personally cultivated. So this was an emperor. The taste of it truly intoxicated the soul. Meng Kuan, after all, failed to understand. His Majesty supported him not out of love. He merely needed someone to constantly remind and pressure me. How could a crown prince be so easily deposed and replaced? His Majesty had raised me with his own hands, taught me to read, to conduct myself as a man, my grand tutor. My wife's clan, the powerful retainers of the Eastern Palace, every one of them had been carefully chosen by him, except for that rebel who had left the capital, Marcus Meng. Who else had the ability to drag me down from the position of crown prince? I followed His Majesty's will, working diligently, handling state affairs, striving to act as a proper gentleman, upright and composed in the eyes of all. I contended with Meng Kuan. Life became utterly joyless. Yet Emperor Alaric Meng still treated me with the same gentleness as before. It was only that, between Iris Meng and me, we had never produced an heir. Watching my younger brothers all marry, establish their own estates, and open princely households, I grew anxious, then stopped myself when I noticed Iris Meng's worry, fearing that I might take concubines. That sort of thing depended on fate. It could not be rushed, yet court politics had grown fiercely contentious. My brothers, outside the court, spoke to me with thinly veiled sarcasm and strange double meanings. It left me vaguely unsettled. Since that was the case, I seized an excuse to leave. The southern regions were plagued by relentless floods. I was exhausted from the capital and petitioned to go south, to Jiangnan, to assist with flood control. The flooding in Jiangnan was severe. Under the recommendation of Duke Mai, skilled workers were gathered to help manage the canals and embankments. Watching their practiced hands and seasoned methods, I found, almost unintentionally, that many complicated matters were resolved for me. I grew sincerely inclined to recruit them. Upon careful inquiry, I learned that many of these men had come from Ling Prefecture. At the mention of Ling Prefecture, my thoughts turned inevitably to the Princess of Qin. Their words were full of reverence, loyalty, and concern for her. Fearing it might upset me, they spoke cautiously. I only shook my head and submitted a memorial, requesting official positions for them. The floods had swallowed countless lives. Those who survived lost their fields, their only means of survival, and were forced to become refugees. At this point, the bonds between local governments and the people gradually weakened. Previously, household registrations had bound them to specific towns. They could not leave at will. But now the land that sustained them was gone. With no harvest, remaining meant starvation. Becoming refugees was the only way to live. The scale of displacement expanded rapidly, bringing countless problems. The refugees had no food. As winter approached, the cold and hunger killed uncountable numbers. Disease spread. Some, desperate to survive, turned to banditry. The calamity in Jiangnan was caused not only by the floods, but by people themselves. I was a scion of a great house. I had never truly experienced the hardships of the common people, yet I could not pretend to be a sage capable of saving so many lives. All I could do was petition His Majesty to open the granaries and distribute grain, arrange temporary shelters outside the city, persuade the noble clans to donate money and supplies, and request imperial physicians and local doctors to develop remedies for the epidemic. When the imperial envoy arrived with the sacred edict, bringing grain and physicians, he also conveyed an oral command ordering me to return to the capital immediately. The affairs here were to be handed over to local officials. This was the first time I openly defied His Majesty. That night, after distributing late meals to the refugees, I ignored the risk of infection and personally visited the area where the sick were gathered. A young girl knelt beside a boiling cauldron. Everyone else wore expressions of despair, but she alone smiled brightly, so much so that she even hummed a small tune. No one could understand what she was singing. Seeing me stop, she hurriedly stood up and bowed, somewhat awkward and unfamiliar with formalities. I asked her, "Once you enter this place, it is difficult to leave alive. Why do you still smile?" She replied, "My lord, living is a day meant to make others happy. Being happy is also a day. I choose to live happily." I asked again, "What are you doing?" "The medicine for the epidemic has not yet been prepared." "Why boil water?" She said, "The officials brought firewood and charcoal. I'm boiling water for my mother. Drinking clean, hot water might help her feel a little better." Nearby, an elderly woman lay on a pile of firewood. She was likely ill, yet compared to others, her pain seemed much lighter. I looked at the girl, then at the old woman, and suddenly felt anger rise. This woman is not infected. Why was she brought here? The girl's hands trembled. She immediately knelt before me, tears streaming as she knocked her head against the ground. "My lord. Earlier I took my mother to seek medical treatment. The physician didn't ask a single question. He seized us both and brought us here. Once inside, no one can leave. I had no choice but to stay. I beg you, show mercy. Please do not blame me or my mother." I flicked my sleeve and left. That night, the imperial physician told me the girl's surname was Yen. Her family ran a small shop in the capital. Aside from her mother, she had a father and a younger brother. When refugees first entered the city, she had donated money and goods, even cooked porridge with her own rice. Later, as the epidemic worsened, all refugees were rounded up. Her mother caught a chill but was mistaken for an epidemic case and taken away. Miss Yen happened to be accompanying her mother to see a doctor and was thus detained as well. The strange thing was that after all this time, she herself had not contracted the disease. Her mother, though infected, was in far better spirits than the others. The imperial physicians asked Miss Yen about her methods. Half awake, half dazed, she replied that she simply boiled hot water to drink, washed bowls and utensils with hot water before use. She mentioned nothing of medical theory or pharmacology. The physicians were frustrated, but unable to glean anything useful. In the end, they tried ordering thorough cleaning of the patient's living areas, providing firewood so they could boil water, drinking it, bathing with it, and washing utensils with it. Afterward, although the patients did not noticeably recover, the disease spread far more slowly. Miss Yen was skilled in cooking and voluntarily took charge of preparing meals. Though the work was exhausting, at least no one lacked food. I never saw her again. Instead, the imperial physicians praised her twice, saying that although Miss Yen knew nothing of medicine, she cared for others with great diligence. By the time the physicians finally developed a cure for the epidemic, it was already the following year. The flood embankments had proven effective. I ordered grain distributed and fields reclaimed. And the refugees were re-registered into household records. Yet fate twists and turns beyond human control. Just as everything returned to order, I contracted the epidemic myself. When the physicians delivered their diagnosis, my first thought was, it's over. If I were to die in this disaster, how should I arrange my affairs? What of my wife? What of my subordinates? I had been crown prince for many years, commanding vast manpower and resources. If I died, the court would surely face great upheaval. Marcus Meng had been demoted and exiled to Ling Prefecture. If I did not ascend the throne, she would never be able to return. Panner would have no chance to inherit. The two sons of Empress Helena were still young. If one of them succeeded, with a weak ruler on the throne, the state could hardly avoid falling into the hands of powerful ministers. But if it were the second prince, Dingji Fanner, the son of the former empress, then he was nothing less than a thorn lodged deep in the new emperor's eye. In that instant, my head felt as though it were about to split apart. Fear of death, coupled with anxiety over my future, surged together until I vomited fresh blood. My vision darkened into a murky blue. Black. When I woke again, a young woman was attending me at my bedside. She was Lady Yen. I asked her why she was here. She replied that Your Highness had once shown immense kindness to her and her mother, that she, a lowly common woman, had nothing of value with which to repay such grace, and was therefore willing to stay and serve, to return Your Highness's benevolence through devotion. I was the crown prince. Even if we were in Jiangnan, I was still the crown prince. At my side, I naturally had my own eunuchs and attendants. Yet this Lady Yen, I did not know where she had found such confidence, actually dared to come face to face with someone afflicted by a raging epidemic like me. And yet, when my eyes met her reddened, glistening gaze, something in my heart stirred, ever so slightly. In the end, I allowed her to remain. She was indeed quick-witted. Every day, she cleaned my chambers until not a speck of dust remained. The meals she prepared were also quite decent. During those days, believing my future to be already lost, my temper became erratic and volatile. I would rage without warning, smashing objects at will. Looking back later, even I could hardly bear to face the person I had been. Yet she endured it all, again and again, thanks to her gentle disposition. Each day, she cooked porridge for me with her own hands. she was also rather interesting. While I was recuperating, she played with me in all sorts of strange, curious little games. She told me stories, old tales not found in any official records. At times, I would also confide in her, venting some of the resentment and bitterness buried in my heart. She would only smile and listen. She never interrupted. The imperial physician continued administering medicine. On the day I fully recovered, I suddenly realized, during all these days, I had not once thought of the crown princess, Serena Shen, nor had she sent so much as a single letter, when I had first been struck by the epidemic. The imperial physician took my pulse, fell into a long silence, and only then spoke, "Your Highness has been poisoned." I was stunned for a moment, then quickly steadied myself. I asked whether the poison could be cured. The physician replied that the toxin had already seeped deep into my bones and marrow. It was likely the result of long-term accumulation. With his limited skill and shallow learning, he feared he could not help me, and even if the poison were somehow dispelled, it would almost certainly shorten my lifespan. He begged me to be cautious of those around me. Cautious of those around me. At once, a suspicion formed in my heart. I secretly ordered my trusted aide to return to the capital to investigate this matter, while I myself remained in Jiangnan to recuperate in peace. Lady Yan was a kind and virtuous woman. She would weep over beggars by the roadside. Her relationships with everyone in the residence were excellent. She played with the palace maids like a little sparrow, chirping endlessly, lively and endearing. I did not want to admit it, but when I looked at her, I felt that she resembled Serena Shen as she once was. When my trusted aide returned from the capital, he brought with him a single piece of news. The one who had poisoned me was not Marcus Meng, it was my wife. Serena Shen had once had a fiancé, a childhood sweetheart. That man was elegant beyond compare, of noble lineage, and he doted on her in every possible way. The two families were perfectly matched, and all that remained was to wait for Serena Shen to come of age before their marriage could be celebrated. But heaven never grants things as one wishes. The fiancé she loved so deeply died beneath the hands of Marcus Meng. Her beloved younger brother also died beneath the hands of Marcus Meng, yet she was not even allowed to observe mourning rites. Instead, she was forced to hastily don magnificent bridal robes and marry Marcus Meng's elder brother as his wife. She loved Marcus Meng deeply, but she also hated her husband deeply, and so, she slipped slow-acting poison into the tea, into the food. She even applied it to her lips. She wanted the Meng siblings to turn their blades against one another. She wanted to destroy the family of the man who had killed those dearest to her heart. She wanted him to suffer without dying, to live on as a sacrifice for her dead brother, who had been abandoned by their family. She wished to drive a wedge between the Meng siblings. Her fiancé had died unjustly, so my child, then, could not be allowed to live. A beauty with the heart of a viper, truly terrifying. On the day I returned to the capital, I summoned the Shen clan head and spoke a single word: divorce. I did not miss the brief flicker of shock on Serena Shen's face. I was fair, just like my father, who only took concubines after my birth. I had been willing to allow Serena Shen to bear my legitimate eldest son. Remembering the chaos of my father's rear palace, I had been willing to never take another woman in my lifetime. But this was not a reason for Serena Shen to act with such reckless abandon. I was the crown prince. I had to have a son. As a man, I needed a wife who could respect me as an equal. Serena Shen could not do that. On what grounds did she demand that I protect her position as crown princess? On what grounds did she demand that I safeguard her maternal family? It was laughable. I did not have sufficient evidence to prove that Serena Shen had poisoned me, nor did I intend to reveal this matter to anyone. But she had been married to me for many years without bearing children, and she had never recommended a concubine. For the Eastern Palace, which should branch out and flourish, this alone already constituted grounds for repudiation. She had no basis on which to argue. The Shin clan head smiled obsequiously before me, bowing and scraping as he promised to take Serena Shin back for punishment. Formal repudiation was impossible. Divorce was also impossible. The position of crown princess could not be moved so easily. But punishment was still possible. When I returned, I also brought Lady Yen back to the capital, along with her parents and brothers. Lady Yen had rendered meritorious service in caring for me. I petitioned His Majesty to issue an edict, granting her the title of consort. Serena Shen, for reasons unknown, caused an uproar for a long time, adamantly refusing to allow Lady Yen to become a secondary consort. Lady Yen had never wished to become a concubine in the first place. Seeing the crown princess make such a scene, she became even more unwilling to move into the Eastern Palace. I made my decision swiftly, and wrote a letter of repudiation to threaten Serena Shen, only for Lady Yen to be discovered pregnant at that very moment. In the end, my heart softened. Lady Yen had once attended me so closely, I could not cast her aside. She could only remain in the residence as a concubine. She was deeply unwilling. At first, I tried to coax her, but I soon lost patience and simply let her protest as she pleased. I even sent female officials to teach her proper rules and etiquette. Serena Shen attempted to interfere, claiming the right to instruct the newly entered concubine. But I protected Lady Yen tightly, leaving the crown princess with no opening to strike. Lady Yen was a concubine. The principal wife disciplining her would have been perfectly proper, yet Lady Yen attended me with utmost care, sharing deep affection during my illness. I had to repay that. Time passed in haste. The third prince subdued the fourth prince and brought him under control. But the crown princess was pregnant. If she gave birth to an imperial grandson, their hopes would diminish far less. Step by step, move by move, I countered schemes with schemes. This life of endless struggle made my head ache. I truly did not wish to continue living like this. The imperial physician was a man of His Majesty. His Majesty might pity a son poisoned and thus deprived of longevity, but he would never forgive a crown prince whose shortened lifespan threatened the dynasty. My deposition was only a matter of time. But I could not sit and wait for death. Once, I had been the eldest child of the Meng family. Later, I became the crown prince of Great Liang. I had lived this long, standing as my father's chosen heir. Even Marcus Meng, I had once been able to scheme and force her to leave, and now? Was I truly to clasp my hands together, and willingly hand the imperial throne to another? My trusted aide said to me, "Your Highness, your chances of victory are not high." I looked toward the defensive deployment map of the capital. This was an internal layout leaked from within the palace. He sighed. His Majesty has grown somewhat erratic in recent years. But he is still the emperor, after all. He personally arranged the marriage between you and the Qin state princess. After so many storms, the likelihood that you could truly defeat him is exceedingly slim. I said, "Then so be it. Even if I cannot ascend the throne, the one who sits upon it must never be a child born of a secondary line." Serena Shen went into labor and gave birth on the first day of the 9th month. It was a daughter. I held my daughter in my arms, yet my hands trembled uncontrollably. She had been born prematurely, so small, so fragile. I was afraid that even a little strength might hurt her. This was my child, my first child, wrinkled, crying, unbearably ugly. Yet I knew, she and I shared the same blood. Toward this newborn daughter, I felt an instinctive tenderness and affection. I had just become a father, and yet I did not know what to do at all. I could only stare at that tiny, red, ugly little creature as she cried, my own heart rising and falling with the sound of her sobs. Serena Shen, however, deeply disliked this daughter. She demanded angrily why it was not a son, and even declared that she no longer wished to bear children with me. After giving birth, she handed the child over to the wet nurse, and thereafter treated her with cold indifference. The birth of my daughter gave my third brother and fourth brother even greater confidence, and pushed them to accelerate their plans. I borrowed the influence of the Shin family and various noble clans, slowly, step by step, planting my own people throughout the counties surrounding the capital and the outer city. Within the court, I also gradually expanded my power. The noble families that had once been gravely injured by AU, and continuously suppressed by my father, had been bleeding away their strength for years. They were desperate for a chance to restore their former glory. Some even dreamed of ruling the realm jointly with the imperial house. Even in cooperating with me, they remained wary. They did not dare to act rashly. The palace coup occurred on an utterly ordinary day. The third brother and fourth brother brought their children into the palace to pay respects to the emperor and empress. I had already surrounded the imperial city. With blades in hand, I stormed into the hall. When the third brother saw me enter, he suddenly stood up, fear and exhilaration blazing openly between his brows. He shouted with feigned righteousness, "Elder brother, are you rebelling?" I did not answer. I raised my blade and cut off his head. A shrill scream tore through the hall. My palace guards immediately slew the fourth brother. The emperor sat high above, staring at me. I looked at him for a long time, then bent down and said, "I beg your majesty to pass the throne to this subject." He merely laughed and asked, "Do you want to kill me?" I replied, "Would never dare. I only wonder, other than myself, who else can your majesty choose?" Fanner is foolish. You is a woman. The ninth prince is still young. Your majesty, who else can you choose? The emperor sneered coldly. "My good son, sooner or later, this realm will be yours anyway. Why are you so impatient?" I raised my head and asked, "If that is so, then why does your majesty not pass it to me now?" He hurled a wine jar at me and said coldly, "Traitorous rebel, do you truly think I would not dare to kill you?" I said, "Your majesty is ruthless by nature. Blood ties mean nothing to you. It is only that a few days ago, when this subject left the capital, I encountered a petty thief on the road, who attempted an assassination. He has already been captured and executed. His body has been brought here. Might your majesty be willing to preside over justice for this subject?" The emperor seemed startled. But when the body was carried in, his shock turned instantly into fury. His hands trembled, and for a long while he could not utter a single word. Empress Helena cried out in anguish, "Madness! She is your younger sister." That so-called petty thief had only died days earlier. The corpse had not yet begun to decay. The face was clearly recognizable. It was my younger sister, Marcus Meng. I rebelled today, but the imperial edict ordering Marcus Meng back from Lingzhou had been issued months ago. He had ordered Marcus Meng to prepare troops and return to the capital as a prince. He personally forced me into rebellion, then commanded my own sister to come and capture me. The heart of an emperor is as deep and vicious as wolves and tigers. If he could allow my sister to come and kill me, then naturally, I could kill my sister first. I smiled and said, "Your Majesty, this is a traitor, not my sister. If your Majesty passes the throne to me, my sister will be posthumously restored as princess who guards the nation, buried according to the rites of a princely house, and laid to rest within the imperial mausoleum. If your Majesty refuses, then Marcus Meng is a rebel corpse, to be hacked to pieces and thrown into a mass grave, never to find peace in the afterlife." I bowed to the emperor and empress and said, "Affairs within the palace are complicated. This subject will go make arrangements. I hope your Majesty and Her Majesty will reach a decision soon. This subject swears to protect Fanner and the ninth brother, with wealth and honor for their entire lives. As I withdrew and closed the doors behind me, a tremendous crash echoed from within. Father had grown old. It was time for him to rest. While I was arranging palace matters, an aide rushed over, saying that the Prince of Xianhua County had come to pay respects to the Emperor and Empress, and requested that I accompany him. A trace of unease rose in my heart. Fanner and Au were twins, their bloodlines intertwined. Had he noticed something? Yet when I entered the hall, what I saw was Fanner tearing at the robes on Au's body. The scene twisted and distorted before my eyes. I stood there in a daze, until fresh blood surged up my throat, and only then did I realize what had happened. My father spat blood, his trembling hand pointing at Fanner as he cried in grief, "You beast!" I snapped back to my senses and rushed to pull him away. Fanner collapsed to the ground. My fury had not subsided. I drew my blade, intending to kill him. How could heaven be so cruel, to let the Meng family give birth to such a monster? What had Marcus Meng ever done wrong? She had protected him on the road home. She had protected him as he grew up, even if they had been separated more than together in recent years, even if she was domineering and ruthless in her actions. Fanner had no right at all, to humiliate her like this. Meng Fan sat there blankly. Suddenly, he stood up from the ground, hair disheveled, clapping his hands and laughing wildly. "She's dead. Good. So good, the demon is dead." Then, all at once, he collapsed to his knees, howling in tears. "Mother, sister is dead, sister is dead. Someone come take Fanner away, they all bully Fanner." I stared in shock. I crouched down, brushed aside his tangled hair, and called softly, "Fanner! Fanner!" He suddenly stumbled backwards several steps, clutching his face as he wailed, "Don't hit me! Don't hit me! I won't run, I beg you, don't hit me!" Empress Helena stepped forward and asked, "Fanner, do you know where this is?" Meng Fan replied dully, "Sister. Sister, don't talk, they'll beat you. Be good, they'll sell you somewhere nice." He had gone mad. I locked Fanner in a side hall, and ordered people to summon the imperial physicians to treat him. As for myself, I went to search for the imperial seal and the tiger tally. No matter what, today, Father had to personally write the edict of abdication. How long could the corpse of Marcus Meng be preserved? Of course, Marcus Meng was not dead. In the past, even when I held every advantage, I had never been able to kill her. Today, I was gambling everything. How could I possibly have the power to kill her now? All of this was my scheme. Lingzhou was far away, yet in recent years its tax revenues had risen steadily. Marcus Meng dug canals, built bridges, repaired roads, opened mines, refined weapons, with the sky high and the Emperor far away. His Majesty had shelved countless memorials, accusing Marcus Meng. For years, he had allowed her to wield immense authority. What ability did I have to kill her? And she would never be foolish enough to walk alone into my grasp and let me kill her. I hired wandering martial artists to fabricate a corpse, solely to shatter Father's resolve, to force him to hand over the imperial seal and tiger tally, and to write the edict passing the throne. On another day, when Marcus Meng's troops reached the city walls, she would be a traitor and rebel, condemned and reviled by all under heaven. Father looked at me, as though I were an insect, his gaze icy and piercing. But I did not care. Did I still have a way out? From day to night, from night to day, I was besieged for 3 days and 3 nights. The strategist stepped forward and reported in a low voice that Princess Qin had already led her troops to Lincheng, pressing toward the city, urging His Highness to make plans as soon as possible. I froze for a moment, then rose abruptly to my feet. "How many soldiers do we have?" 30,000, he answered, then hesitated, but this is merely an internal conflict among noble houses. Such wars have always required troops. At present, the forces we can truly mobilize amount to fewer than 6,000. Only that much. The strategist's expression wavered. I caught the hesitation in his eyes and said quietly, "At a time like this, what is there left that cannot be said?" He lowered his voice. "Prince Rowan has gone missing." "What?" Another advisor spoke. The palace servants were afraid the prince had gone mad and might harm someone, so they restrained him and left him on the bed. But when they returned with his medicine, the bed was empty. Everything suddenly made sense. Rowan had never gone mad. He and Princess Morgan were twins. He had known long ago that the corpse was not hers. By now, he had likely taken the emperor and the imperial edict and fled the palace. Perhaps he had already left the city. Suddenly, a sharp sound rang out. I turned and saw Emperor Aldrich drawing the imperial sword. His expression was cold as ice. "This realm should have been yours," he said flatly. "I will give you one last chance. If you can capture Morgan and bring her back, I will let this matter pass." I looked at him for a long moment, then turned and left. How did Morgan manage to move her army beneath the city without the gods or ghosts knowing? I asked. "Someone opened the city gates," the strategist replied. "The Ungning army advanced at lightning speed and has already encamped outside the walls." "Who opened them?" After a long silence, he spoke a name, Darius Tang. So it was him. Of course it was him. I had once personally recruited Darius Tang to assist my father. And now, because of Darius Tang, I had lost the entire realm. I closed my eyes. How many soldiers does Morgan have? No fewer than 10,000. I already knew. The situation was beyond saving. I returned to the Eastern Palace and summoned my consorts, sitting with them to speak quietly for a while. Perhaps this, too, was our final meeting. Anya Shun wore a red robe. Her beauty was still overwhelming, yet her smile was twisted and rigid, destroying what elegance remained and revealing a bitterness dark and venomous. She laughed loudly. "Rebellion? You are a traitor, a rebel minister. This is retribution." I sighed and asked her, "What is it that you truly hate me for?" "My hands have never been stained with the blood of those you care about. I protected your family. I safeguarded your pregnant cousin." Anya Shin's eyes were sharp. "You are the one who owes me." "I owe you nothing." As she opened her mouth to retort, I said calmly, "The fiancé you loved was killed by Morgan. Do you know why?" Her voice shook with hatred. "Because Morgan wanted to weaken the noble houses. She slaughtered them deliberately." "Morgan has always acted openly and honorably," I said. "She would never do such a thing." Then I continued, word by word, "Your fiancé forcibly seized a poor man's daughter and made her his concubine. The woman could not endure it and threw herself into a well. Her parents went to the magistrate's office, beating the grievance drum, only to be beaten to death with clubs." Anya Shin staggered back, her face draining of color, then suddenly screamed hoarsely, "You're lying." I went on, "And your younger brother, together with a group of debauched young lords, went to a brothel. Drunk and crazed, he strangled a courtesan to death. Her sisters filed a petition. Morgan executed him on the spot. Even now," I said softly, "there are women in her chambers hanging prayer tags, wishing longevity for Morgan." Anya Shin trembled violently, covering her ears, refusing to listen. I pulled her hands down. You once asked me in grievance, why Morgan's life was worth a life, while others were no more than grass. Today I ask you, why are the lives of noble descendants lives, while the lives of commoners are grass? She collapsed onto the floor, pitiful and utterly broken. I turned to Lady Yen. 1,000 words rose in my throat, yet in the end they became only a sigh. In the end, I am the one who wronged you. Lady Yen wiped away her tears and forced a smile. In this world, what banquet does not end? I forgive your highness. I said, your name has never been entered into the household registry. What happens in the Eastern Palace has nothing to do with you. I will arrange for someone to escort you away. Go wherever you wish. Holding her child, she nodded gently. That is for the best. I have a residence and shops in Jiangnan. I will take my daughter back there. The valuables in your highness's chambers can serve as her dowry. I smiled faintly and turned to leave. A wet nurse chased after me and pressed a letter into my hand. I read it on the spot, then followed its instructions up onto the city wall. The guards, blades drawn, were holding a hostage. The man was pale-skinned, red-lipped, devastatingly beautiful, so exquisite he scarcely seemed real. He was Lucien. Carefully selected by my third brother, Prince Julian, Lucien had once infiltrated a bandit den, intending to assassinate the border commander when Morgan returned to the capital after suppressing the Ruren. At that time, the commander was General Hudson, who wiped out the bandits, captured Lucien, and later handed him over to Morgan. From then on, Lucien stayed at Morgan's side. Because of his beauty, he enjoyed a measure of favor. He had done many things for my third brother, and when Morgan was demoted and sent to Lingzhou, Lucien had played a part in that as well. He was a private retainer raised by the Shen family. When Anya Shen's cousin was betrothed to Prince Julian as his principal consort, the Shen family presented Lucien to him, a traitor who served two masters. Now that my third brother was dead, my guards searched the prince's residence, uncovered the truth, and did everything they could to capture him and bring him here. The strategist said to me, Your Highness, he followed the third prince for many years. He must know much. I said coldly, catching him is inferior to catching Armin. Armin was Morgan's maid, who had followed her since childhood. Morgan treated her closer than a blood sister. If anyone could be used to threaten Morgan, it would be Armin. The strategist laughed lightly. Miss Armin never leaves the princess's side. And she is only a servant. This young lord, however, is truly beautiful. To be kept at the princess's side, he must have some ability. Women are easily ensnared by love. The advantage now lies with the princess. This young lord may still sway her. Below the wall, several soldiers wearing the official armor of the Western garrison appeared. Morgan held the tiger tally. Clinging to my final shred of hope, I called out, Morgan. We are siblings. How did it come to this? The one you love is here. If you willingly surrender your command, I will protect you for a lifetime of peace. She said nothing. She merely raised her bow and aimed it at me. After a long while, she lowered it and waved her hand. The siege began. She was born a general, a star of war. In a direct confrontation, I was no match for her. Love could not threaten her. Kinship could not bind her. She had grown up. She was no longer the young girl who once, in despair, had been willing to submit to punishment before our parents. I was captured swiftly, pressed to the ground by soldiers. The stone beneath me was icy cold, the chill seeping into my bones. In the chaos and shouting, I became a prisoner at last, yet I still could not understand. How had I lost? Escorted into the Taiji hall, I had already lost all will to resist and submitted myself to my father's judgment. He spoke calmly. After all, we are father and son. I will not kill you. Go to the imperial mausoleum. I smiled bitterly and kowtowed. This subject thanks your majesty for his boundless grace. Underscore 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 underscore. Life at the imperial mausoleum was not bad. In the early years of the Liang dynasty's founding, though it was called a mausoleum, no one was buried there yet. From my father onward, emperors naturally had their tombs constructed, and the mausoleum grounds were therefore repaired and expanded. An imperial burial site, after all, was prime geomantic land. I occupied a courtyard alone. My food, clothing, shelter, and movement were all far better than those of a prince in name. And far better than the rebels recorded in history. When Princess Morgan came to visit me, she was clearly startled. In recent days, I had been drowning myself in wine. Only when I was drunk, when my mind was clouded and unsteady, could I indulge in beautiful illusions for a fleeting moment. I was the crown prince. I should have been the emperor. My consorts should have lived in harmony, my sons and daughters, both present and whole, ascending the throne as the ninth fivefold supreme. I would protect my kin for a lifetime of peace. Under my rule, Great Liang would be tranquil and prosperous. My younger siblings would be respectful and filial. The common people would revere and admire me. The court officials would praise me for my grand talent and far-reaching strategy. Then why had I fallen to such a place? Princess Morgan said nothing to me. She only stood in silence for a moment, then turned and left. The one who entered afterward was Lady Yan. She looked at me with deep sorrow and tried to wash my face and comb my hair. I pushed her away. She did not grow angry. Instead, she spoke softly of recent matters. Your Highness. The crown princess threw herself against a pillar and died. I was not surprised. The Shen family had been exterminated to the 9th degree. Even if her life had been spared, how could she have lived well? Death was better, at least it would not corrupt my daughter. Lady Yan continued, the little princess is doing very well now. Her Highness the Princess named her Mengzi and hired wet nurses to care for her with great attention. I am also staying by her side. I noticed that she had changed the way she addressed me. I thought she must have endured enough instruction from the palace matrons. I sighed. I am a prisoner now. You need not observe strict protocol. You may call yourself I if you wish. Lady Yan gave a bitter smile. I wish to take Mingzi back to Jiangnan. These past years, thanks to your Highness's grace, I have saved quite a bit of silver. I also have property there. Life cannot compare to the capital, but we will not lack food or clothing. Yet the princess will not let me leave. She looked at me pleadingly. No matter what, you are Mengzi's father. Please speak to the princess for me. I looked at her, not understanding what she was thinking. You are deposed now, I said slowly. But Mengzi is still of Morgan's blood. Even if she were destitute, at worst she would still be a county princess. She is the emperor's granddaughter, the niece of Princess Qin. If you take her to Jiangnan, what future prospects could she possibly have? Lady Yan wept openly. But I fear the struggles of the imperial clan. the battles within the palace. Mengzi is still so young. If she were harmed by others, what then? That is the child's fate, I replied, unable to persuade me. Lady Yen finally left. The days of confinement grew long and drawn out. In the past, I had been endlessly busy, rushing between government offices, always feeling that time was insufficient. Now, with nothing to do, I discovered that a single day was truly very long. The soldiers did not allow me to leave, yet they did not restrict my movements either. Every day after waking, I would stroll through the mountains, admire the flowers, fish by the water, turn the pages of ancient books, practice calligraphy. The mountain scenery here was breathtaking. Morgan had chosen for me an excellent place to spend my old age. Then the death knell of the imperial city rang out, announcing the birth of a new emperor. My father had died. As the eldest son, I was profoundly unfilial. Before his passing, I had not even seen him one last time. I asked who the new emperor was. They told me. It was Princess Morgan. Indeed, it was her. At the imperial mausoleum, I pondered for a long time before finally understanding the former emperor's intentions. Perhaps he, too, had hesitated. He had foreseen Morgan's future earlier than I had. I was the eldest son, favored by ritual and propriety, adept in civil governance. Morgan was the eldest daughter, astonishing the world, unmatched in martial skill. Among all the children, she was the one most like him. As emperor, I was the most suitable. But Morgan was never someone who would easily compromise. Compared to me, she wished more for Rowan to succeed. Lingzhou had been built by her into something formidable. If she were allowed to remain there freely, then after the emperor's death, she could rebel at any moment. Thus, His Majesty acted on two fronts. On one hand, he incited conflict between me and my third brother. On the other, he issued an edict summoning Morgan back to the capital. If I had not launched a rebellion, Morgan's return to the capital would have resulted in her imprisonment at the imperial mausoleum under prearranged charges. The crimes were already prepared. The imperial edict would not pass through 3 prefectures, no ceremonial escort, only a single eunuch carrying the decree. Such an edict could be considered forged. Morgan, then, would be guilty of plotting rebellion and could not escape punishment. And if I did rebel, then it was all part of His Majesty's long-laid plan. Princess Qin would be summoned to rescue the emperor. Before His Majesty, both Morgan and I had lost. On the day Princess Morgan ascended the throne, a treasured sword was presented to the imperial mausoleum to celebrate the new emperor's reign. Time passed. The days at the imperial mausoleum grew longer and longer. I began copying scriptures. In my idle moments, I wrote fragments of my experiences from youth. Lady Yen came often at first. Later, she became a female official and stopped coming. Mengzi never came even once. Lady Yen said it plainly. I was a criminal. Mengzi was the adopted daughter of the emperor. The distance between us was as vast as heaven and earth. It was better for her to stay as far from me as possible. Later, Princess Morgan also died. The day she died was bright and clear. Before her passing, she issued an edict naming Mengzi as her successor. I found it almost laughable. She wished that in her next life, she would be born into an ordinary family. Only prisoners wish never to be born into the imperial household in their next life. Victors, from the beginning, always wished to be born into the house of emperors. In life, Morgan loved extravagance deeply. Yet in death, she ordered her funeral to be simplified and abolished sacrificial burials. That was the first time I saw Mengzi. She had once been a thin, fragile bundle in my arms. Now she had grown tall. She did not resemble her mother, nor did she resemble me. But she was very beautiful. When she saw me, she wanted to walk toward me. I closed my eyes, turned away, and silently curved my lips into a bleak smile. She should not have come. I was a criminal. Being close to me would entangle her in countless things, and her throne would never be stable. She was the last trace of my blood left in this world. I had to preserve her. Life continued to pass slowly. Armin came to visit me and asked what